Hey guys, we got a special video today. We have the wealthy idiots. We have Michael and myself. We're
Yep.
doing a little bit of a
Just the
collaboration.
idiots.
So I'm gonna let
Just
him
the
kind of
idiots.
introduce himself, and then we'll do our little introduction, just a little tiny one before we react to this Dave Ramsey video, y'all.
Yeah, for sure. Thanks for having me on, guys. This is super cool.
Sure.
My name's AJ from the Wealthy Idiots. My buddy and I founded the Wealthy Idiots as just an attempt to try and teach personal finance to as many people as we can. And so it's fun to do like collabs with other people that, we may not always agree, but have the same passion to try and educate people about finance. I think is really cool.
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome.
Yeah, I don't have a lot for us. I mean, similarly, I think part of it was just wanting to do a channel to learn more too. Like, not to be too confident. Like, we didn't think we knew everything, but we've definitely learned more as we're doing it, as we watch, videos such as on your channel. And it's just been exciting to get in deep with this.
Let's do it.
Awesome. Well, thanks, guys.
Yeah, thank you. And all right, we're going to react to I Don't Want People Associating Us With Your Plan from Ramsey right now.
And today's question of the day comes from Jonathan in the Netherlands. He says, we really don't feel the necessity or the urgency to follow the beans and rice style of baby step 2. I can imagine that it might feel nice to have no debt, and we have no intention of getting further into debt. However, I don't feel it's worth living on rice and beans for 3 years to pay off $43,000 of student loans as soon as possible. As we're a young family, we're making $6,500 a month, and now we can use our income and savings to buy a second-hand bigger car, make our garden a bit nicer, and later in life we'll have more to spare to pay off those loans anyway. What are your thoughts on this? And what would be the benefit of still following the baby steps more rigidly? That's a really good question. And you know what, Dave, I hear this a lot. I think a lot of people are like, why do I have to be so urgent? Why do I have to be so intense? And I look at it a couple of different ways. Number one, the series of steps that we follow. This is a guy, Jonathan, I don't mean any harm, but you're kind of just an ish guy, right? You're doing what you want to do. You're really not on our plan, and that's fine. You don't have to be. It's your prerogative. But the way the steps work is you're doing them consecutively, and the first three, you're doing them with intensity so that you can get to the final 4, which is really that wealth building area. So there's some method to this madness, but this kind of goes back to what we've talked about before. There is urgency, because I think about my grandmother who would say, if you want to make God laugh, tell him your plans. And there is something to be said for that. I think a lot of people just coast through because they think, hey, this is my plan. If I just go out like this, it's going to go, check off the boxes like that. But you really don't know what's going to come your way. God willing, everything goes fine, and, you'll keep that income and everything will be perfect and everybody's healthy but you don't know that. And I think that you've got to live each day to the fullest. You got to do the best that you can with each day that you're given. And when you've got debt, pay it off. You got $43,000 of debt and you make a fine income. It doesn't have to take you 3 years to pay this off. You could honestly pay it off a lot faster than that. And at the end of the day,
Jonathan, what you're trying to say is your plan sucks. It sucks.
You want to pause real quick?
Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to hear what you guys think about the question and her response.
Yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was just already, like, to me, a lot of this is kind of, does the results justify the means, and kind of trying to figure out. So obviously, like for Ramsey, they have a plan, it's pretty much like course, kind of stick with it. And, I think it's always going to make sense for them to push that specific method because they're like, it's tried and it's true. But in some ways I want to be like, anything that works for you works. It's similar like with dieting. Not every plan works for everybody. So if you can find something that works for you and it's somewhat different, like that's good. But then maybe, you're not going to be getting the right information like from Ramsey, or you're going to want to jump ahead. And we've seen, some videos where people try to like leapfrog things And it's like, no, he does have this for a reason. It doesn't mean like the whole plan has to be. And people do seem to love to pick on the rice and beans of it all, which, you know, they mentioned having a garden, and I'm already thinking, I was like, well, you're halfway there. You can grow stuff to eat with the rice and the beans. But yeah, I don't know. That's kind of my thoughts there.
Yeah.
Yeah. What is your kind of, because, you know, you've done a lot of reactions to this. So kind of what's your thought on this?
Yeah,
so
for
far?
sure. So my new rule is that if somebody calls or writes into Dave Ramsey, they should do what Dave Ramsey says. Like the fact that this person wrote in looking for some validation for whatever plan it is that they're trying to do says that they're unsure already of what they're trying to do, right? So just, you know, you wrote to Dave Ramsey, do what Dave Ramsey says, like, and move forward with your life.
Yeah.
But I don't think the writer is necessarily wrong. I think I agree with Michael on that. Like I know a lot of people that will kind of do this slow burn style of like paying the debt off. And, you know, as life goes on, they're paying more, they get more debt sometimes, but you know, they just kind of live that way and it works for them. You know, I don't necessarily think that that's bad, but I would assume that the sliver of people that could do that without just destroying their entire financial future, right, is probably really small. So like this person may have that student loan debt. They may slow burn it. They may, you know, invest and do other stuff on the side, and they may be greatly successful. But I would say statistically, this is just a guess. I don't think that most people can do that. I think once you have that mindset of like debt is not that big of a deal, it's a slippery slope. And I think that's what Dave's trying to say. Or at least, I don't know her name. The other girl. That's what she was trying to say, I think.
Yeah.
No, yeah, I definitely agree with that statement though, because, you know, actually a lot of people, I won't say anybody's names personally, but like some of my aunts, I actually have an uncle and an aunt that have student loans, and they're both retired. You know what I mean? And
oh wow,
they own their real estate. They make a very wealthy income. They're able to live the life they want, and they have student loans still. And that's the only debt they have. But it's like, why? You know what I mean? But in that case, it's kind of like the little sliver that you're saying. It's you have to be a special person in order to actually not let like that debt pretty much think every other debt is okay, and just to keep that path going. You know what I mean? So I do agree with that statement 100%.
Yeah.
Do you guys? Sorry. Do you guys know what positive arbitrage is?
I don't. I love the sound of it.
Yeah, okay. Let's talk about that at the end of the video. We can cover that. I don't want to like fry everybody's brain and then change the way that everybody views what's happening here.
Right.
Yeah, no worries.
People have been trying to do the crap you're talking about for 50 years, and it doesn't work. You can't sort of kind of get out of debt and ever get out of debt. It doesn't work. It's just actual that you can't find any proof text in the marketplace of someone who wanders along and lollygags and sticks with it and gets out in 10 years but plants his little garden. Well, give me a break. Call the wambulance. You know, seriously, this is ridiculous.
This is just somebody who doesn't want to sacrifice to win.
Well,
period.
Yeah, you're not going to win, okay? Because there's no middle ground with this. Really? Now, I've been doing this a long time. It's not just that you're not doing
real quick.
So please do not follow the baby.
First is who hit Dave over the head?
Oh,
and what
I
was
know.
the beef over, right?
Yeah, he seems so much angrier with the Band-Aid too. And it's as if it just happened.
Oh, I actually had to zoom in my screen to actually see that.
Yeah, because she was being fairly like, you know, it's like, well, been measured, and then which to be fair, he does this a lot. You know, comes out just kind of like.
It's probably him walking around that new real estate building he's building.
Oh, he whacked his head. Yep.
Yeah, Dave Ramsey, if you saw this, you weren't wearing a hard hat.
Yeah.
But the other thing that I think is missing here from Dave's perspective is that he's saying, because he made that statement, like there's no case study that shows that what you're doing is successful. Well, I would say like most people do it this way.
Yeah.
Right? Most people don't follow Dave. Most people aren't hardcore investors. Most people ride their debt out for the majority of their lives, and they live their whole lives. You know, they don't die starving on the street. Most people.
Yeah.
So I would say that's not necessarily true. But then it occurred to me as he was talking that his measurement for success was being debt free. Right. So what he's saying here is like nobody is debt free by following your plan. Like that just doesn't exist. But I don't think that the person writing has the same value. That debt like cannot be there.
Right.
Right. They're not looking at success in the same way. And I think that's where a lot of people miss Dave, and Dave misses a lot of people.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, that's true. It's just the benchmark of what they're trying to look at. It's totally different. So I'm even kind of curious just because they're from the Netherlands. I'm like, that's just culturally so different. I don't even know what that would mean for this person. But yeah,
Right, yeah.
That's a really good point.
Also, another thing about Dave, I think where he, another place where he like misses people, paying off debt doesn't sound appealing after, you've been told to go to school, then go to college, then take on debt, and then, come out of school and then just go work to pay off debt. Like it just sounds like that's honestly like your first 25 years of just straight hell. You know what I mean? So it's like, it just doesn't work. And I mean, it does work. But I don't think a lot of people want to do that. You know what I mean? Because they want to get out and travel. They want to start this new job. They want to go get the new apartment, new dog, new house, wife, kids. You know what I mean? And it's like, but this debt is going to keep me from doing all that, because if I follow Dave Ramsey's plan, I'm not ready for that. And I have to not be ready for that for a long, long time.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. I think that's where he misses a lot of people. He doesn't really talk about the ways where you can put all those things in your life and tackle debt. So I feel like he almost needs like a new formula, than just going 100% on debt. It's like, okay, how can you go 80% and then 20% over here? And then, you know what I mean? So that way you get both outcomes for working hard and can actually see the vision. Because I feel like people don't actually see the vision that he's trying to create for people.
Yeah. Well, yeah, the word nuance with him is not there. So it's this is the plan basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll see what more he's got.
Baby steps. Please do not tell people you're doing Ramsey,
No, he's not doing
because
Ramsey.
I don't want to be insulted by your abject failure, and I don't want my brand damaged by it. Okay, just because it's not going to work. Here's the reason, Jonathan. All right, the thing works like this. If you don't really, with great intensity, focus on a dramatic change in behavior where you have been going in the wrong direction, you will never change the behavior. We're not asking you to live on beans and rice the rest of your life, or to
even
live in
3
live in a
years.
cave and collect lint and only come out on triple coupon Thursday. But what you're doing will not actually work, because it's not sustainable, because it has absolutely no energy. I just think I'm going to kind of wander. I'm going to get a nice house and it's all going to work out. No, it's not, Jonathan. No, it's not. Because you're going to get your freaking head taken off by life, and you're going to look up 15, 16 years into your little marriage and go, dadgum, we are stupid people. We are still treading water. And ask all these people that are 45 and 50 years old that tried to wander out, and then they found us, and in 36 months they got out of debt and they do their debt-free scream. They'll tell you. They'll tell you your little plan sucks, because it does. It won't work is why it sucks.
And when you're lukewarm like that, you say, I have no intentions of getting back into debt. Yeah, you will.
Yeah, you will. Absolutely,
you definitely will.
Because you're not committed to the idea. The idea of where debt freedom will take you, which is into wealth and into a whole nother realm of generosity than you could even grasp right now, is not appealing to you as much as your garden. Give me a break. Seriously. Will not work, Jonathan. Will not work. So you can go do what you want to do, but please do not associate my name with it, because I don't want to be tied to your failure and you go, I tried that Ramsey stuff and it doesn't work. No, you didn't. No, you didn't. Because we know that there's a high probability you are never going to get out of debt unless you attack it like your dadgum life depends on it. You got to get so fired up and wired up that your character shifts. Your neuroplasticity moves in the way your brain works. Where when you see debt, you recoil. When you pull up next to a nice car at a traffic light, you now no longer go, oh, that's a nice car. You go, that fool's got papers.
Yeah. Well, you know, right now he's stuck in comfort. His life, he feels comfortable. He says, I don't think there's any need to get uncomfortable, to change this. I'm cushy.
The greatest
What's the big deal?
greatest enemy of excellence is not bad things. The greatest enemy of excellence is the okay.
Yep, just fine.
I'm okay.
It's just fine.
I'm okay.
So true, Dave.
No, you're not. You suck. You're not okay. Your plan sucks.
Yeah.
It's pitiful, and it's not going to work.
Debt is like riding a motorcycle. It's not if you crash, it's when you crash. Because you will crash. Remember that.
Ooh. What are you get this motorcycle?
I'm just saying. It's not if, it's when.
Hey, good question.
Georgian horses, you a motorcycle.
Look, you won't get me on a
It's
bike.
not a matter of if you crash, but when.
That's debt.
Yep.
Coma mobiles or something.
Oh gosh,
All
that's
right.
even worse than what I said.
I'm gonna just go ahead and pause it there. Let's see. There's a lot I wanted to. Oh, I like that. Yeah. So one thing I wanted to ask you, John, because I feel this is you. You know, you talked about that part where you pull up to a nice ride. Have you gotten past that point where you're like, ooh?
No.
Yeah.
I mean, truly, I'll never get past that point. But in a way, I am, just because, you know, it's just not a smart decision for me. But no, I mean, I think it's kind of fun to want things that you know you can get, but you're like making that smart decision. Because I used to tell people, and this sounds lame, but when I saved like my first $3,000, and it was, I don't know, something lit up in me, like just go into a store and say, I could buy that in cash. You know, asking the guys that work there, like, hey, you know, like asking them specs on it, like, hey, can I sit in it? Can I take a test drive or whatever? Like, I'm talking about like a lawnmower. This is a specific story, but
Very specific.
you know, it's just nice to know that you can do these things, but, and it's not like I'm trying to bully on the sales guy or anything. It's just, you know, it's a different feeling, and I never felt that feeling about such a big purchase, and I've just kind of elevated that feeling. I don't know. I'm weird. It's just, it makes me happy to afford things and walk past it every day than it does to actually buy things. And I don't know. It just always has been a good feeling for me.
Yeah. Well, that kind of again touches like the grayscale and nuance that we talked about. It's kind of lacking. It's because in a lot of ways you're kind of embodying what he appreciates, but you're still also aware of kind of your impulses, like your synapses or whatever he said aren't changed so much that it's not like you would ever consider something, but you are just like more aware and more conscious of like planning and where you're putting your money, and you know, you're just kind of more thoughtful about that.
AJ, what was your 24-year-old like life like financial, if I may ask? Since I'm 24, I figured I'd ask you.
Well, it was a little tricky because 24 was getting towards the end of my Marine Corps career.
Okay.
I had a 5-year contract that started when I was 19, but like late 19. So I think I left the Marine Corps when I was like maybe late 2024. We were really comfortable at the time because my wife had like a decent job. I was, you know, I made pretty good rank over the course of my career, so I was making pretty good income. But I knew that I couldn't replicate that when I left. And so I was trying my best to save. And as soon as I left the Marine Corps, like my finances went down the drain. Like we just had no way. Like we were living in an apartment that was fairly cheap. Our budgeting was tight. And even still, like, you know, I'm not sure the numbers ever actually matched up for us to make that work. So what we ended up doing was actually moving back to where I live now in San Jose, so that my parents could watch our kid. And then we ended up moving back in with them, which, you know, any new couple could tell you is a nightmare.
Oh God,
Your married self moving back into your parents. Nobody wants to do that.
Yeah. John's got family over right now, and you know, he's lucky he's not recording this in the basement.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's fair.
No.
One of the questions I had for Dave, which I don't know if you can answer this, but like, I don't mean you guys, but I don't know if Dave could answer this, but like, what is his recidivism rate for his plan, right? So like how many people join his plan and then drop out,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm just kind of curious, like he's presenting this plan like you have to do it this way to be successful. But what if like the amount of people that drop out of his plan is like 99%?
Yeah.
Right? Well, okay, so then what if you did like you were talking about earlier, I think it was John was talking about it. Like what about the 80% plan? Right? Well, if you did the 80% plan, what if only 95% of people dropped out of that? Or maybe it's more people drop out of that, right? But
Yeah.
that's something that I don't know Dave's ever answered.
You're right.
So it's
yeah.
interesting to know, like, what, maybe the best way to success, because Dave will quote these studies that he's done, the millionaire studies, right? Where he's like, all the millionaires have done it this way. Therefore, you have to follow my plan because that will get you there, at the most likely to get you there. But I don't know if that necessarily equates.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've pointed that out before too. Like, you could be like, when I'm retired, I do plan on reducing the amount of debt that I have, right? I could take risk now because I'm capable of handling it. And then as I get older, I'm going to reduce that. But, and to be clear, all my debt is investment debt. None of it is consumer debt.
Right.
But like how, like, I don't know, like, if I fell into his study and I was debt free, I might look different in his study than what my actual plan was.
True.
Right. So yeah, I don't know. I'd really like to know that information. I think it'd be interesting. But if it comes out that Dave's not the best choice, maybe he'll never tell us. Maybe that's why we don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is really
Yeah.
interesting because I mean, he like you said, he has this one plan, and it's supposed to work. And I do believe that his plan does work. But like if you look at anything else in life with plans, there's always more than one. You know what I mean? Whether it's a phone plan or whether it's a retirement plan or whether it's, I mean, even like mortgages have plans. You got the 30-year, 15-year, you got different interest rates, different down payments. You know what I mean? It's everything's got a different plan, from all the way from your health savings account to at your job. So it's like,
Yeah, very true.
you're telling me there's one plan to get out of debt, and
Well, yeah.
financial has emotions, it has money to deal with, it has percentages. I mean, just a number of things. It's not just job debt, job debt, job debt, job debt, and then rice mouth. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of how he puts it, and it's just so cutthroat and cold.
Well, and like you were saying, AJ, like if you were to track it, like even if he did track it, how much would he admit like was a plan error versus somebody not being dogmatic enough? Because there's so many things that happened outside of their control too. I mean, just think of everything that's happened in our lifetime, like recession, pandemic, and all this stuff. That some of that time, at least, he would have been doing this plan, and people would have been following it. And even if they were doing it to the letter, there's things they couldn't predict. And so would that have been considered a failure on them, or would that be like a failure on his plan? Or I don't know. It's kind of
That's a
fascinating.
good question. And like John pointed out, like if you, or he may have pointed this out before the show, so I don't, I'll give a quick recap. If you, use the $1,000 emergency fund and you have no other cash anywhere else, and something happens that costs more than $1,000, you're going back into debt.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right. And how many people has that happened to where they did that, but then they quickly got back out? Right. Is that really following Dave's plan? I don't know. Like, because what else would you do if you only have $1,000 and let's say your medical bill was like $5,000? Like, what do you do? I don't know the answer to that question. I don't think he really knows either.
No.
Right. I think the implication is that you would have to get back into debt, but he's not going to say that. Right.
And I think another thing that takes a twist on Dave Ramsey's information is, he's big on this 4% rule, or a fourth of your take-home pay is for a mortgage. Well, we're in this weird situation. I'm not sure how California is, but in Tennessee, most people make anywhere from 45 to 50,000, maybe 60. 70s kind of, you're in a new bracket. I feel like you're like more like high middle class out here, which actually is crazy to think about. But I mean, think about that. A fourth of that income is now what the average apartment costs in here.
Yeah.
So don't buy a house because you can't afford it. But we're now moving to a world where your apartment is 2/4 of your rent, or not your rent, but your income. So he's so outdated. Like it's just so outdated. I think his principles are 100% the best, but they're not matching up with today's world, if that makes sense. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
I
I mean,
don't
his $1,000 has not changed in what, forever? Like 30 years? And you're
Yeah,
telling me
yeah.
that $1,000 30 years ago is the same as $1,000 today?
right.
Yeah.
No.
$1,000 last year wasn't the same as $1,000 today.
Oh yeah, yeah,
$1,000 wouldn't cover
Right.
my gas bill for
Yeah.
yeah,
2 months.
Yeah, right.
yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, we've talked about like I was reading an article about people holding onto their cars for longer too, but like John and I have talked both on the channel and off about like for me, for instance, I've been renting a home for like 7 years, and thankfully rent's never gone up, which is a miracle because it went
Yeah,
from
that's
being
awesome.
like slightly above expensive to now being a steal here. And I'm just like trying to hold on, just digging in, because that's
Don't let
not
your
always
landlord
going to be
hear
the case. Yeah.
All right. Real quick, I teased positive arbitrage, so I got to explain it to you
Yes.
guys before we clock out of this segment. The idea is real simple. It's like, could you make more in your investments than you are paying in your debt, right? So real estate by its very nature is positive arbitrage. What you're doing is you're taking out like some, hopefully a low interest rate loan, 4%, and you're putting it into something that will grow faster than that or give you cash faster than that 4% is costing you. A more simplified version would be like, let's say you could invest in the S&P 500 at 10% and you were going to purchase a car, right? And you have $50,000 to purchase that car. So you take your 50 grand, you can go buy the car, and then that's it, right? That's what Dave would tell you to do. Or you could take your 50 grand and you put it in the S&P 500, which you expect to get 10% ish on average. And then you would go get a car loan for, somewhere around 4 or 5-ish%. The difference is about 5%, right? That's positive. And the arbitrage part is that you're basically buying money at a cheaper rate than you're making it, right? So you put the money into the S&P 500 and you get a loan for your car. You're making 5% on your money now. Whereas if you just paid cash, you made nothing. That's the concept of positive arbitrage. So I think that, when it comes to debt, I do think the mathematically correct thing you should do when it comes to a student loan, especially if your loan is a lower interest rate, like, anywhere from 1 to 6, especially, is if this was me, right? Not financial advice. If this was me, I'd put my money into the S&P 500 index funds. Right. And I'd pay that debt off as slow as I possibly could. And this is where, like the Dave part, he'd get mad at that. But I know that I'm intentional with that kind of stuff. I can't say everybody's that intentional. That sliver of people is probably really small that could actually handle that. And the rule that I use on my channel is like, if you have a credit card and you've not had consumer debt on that credit card for the last few years, you're like paying it off every month and you're capable of sticking to a budget, maybe you're a positive arbitrage person.
Yeah.
Maybe it'll work for you, right?
Yeah. Also, it's actually really neat that you kind of explained it that way, because I feel like I've thought of stuff like that, but I've never actually had someone to actually like just say it.
Yeah,
you know
yeah.
what I mean?
We've never had the term. It's
Yeah.
definitely stuff we've considered, but
Yeah, and one of the cool things in that formula, I don't know if you mentioned it, I might have missed it, but that car, and I know this is just an example, but that car also lost that devalue versus your money in the S&P 500, because your money keeps growing and growing and growing and growing till you pretty much die and give it to your kids or whatever you do with it. But that car, it's like, you know what I mean? So it's like you put money in which basket and it kind of goes like that. You know what I mean? So I think that's actually another cool way to look at that little scenario too.
Yeah, definitely. And you can multiply this part of positive arbitrage, very carefully, very conservatively, and with plenty of cash reserves to make sure you don't screw this up. But you could multiply it by, instead of taking the cash out to go buy something that's depreciating, like you said, you could get a loan to buy something that is appreciating. So not only do you have positive arbitrage on the loan and then your investment in the S&P 500, but then you take this cash and you put it into something that's also growing, right? And so you're like, your cash is working for you in multiple ways in multiple different places all at the same time, is a really cool concept. Now, it does come with risk, obviously. Any debt that you take out starts increasing risk, right? I don't
Mhm.
agree with Dave. Like Dave does it like, you know, no debt, any debt. And like that's the
Yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
I think that you could land a lot of places on this spectrum. And I think you could take out debt and be very conservative about it, be very close to this side. And that's what I
Yeah.
usually recommend to people. Like,
Oh yeah.
be very calculating, have plenty of reserves, have backups in case you lose your job or 2008 happens again.
Mhm.
Right.
Mhm. Yeah, no, Dave is literally the epitome of the Drake meme with the no debt. So yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. I think he has nightmares of debt from being in debt.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
think so.
I think he
Probably.
actually took a cold shower. I want to say somehow that reference to a very true story. Even though he jokes about it, kind of, I really do think
Yeah.
he was
Well,
scared shitless of.
we saw the
I agree.
bandit. He woke up, he hit the bed stand, and he was like, "Oh, somewhere there's debt."
Yeah, and I think he had a bad story, and I think he overcome that bad story, which is an awesome way to look at it. And his plan is great, but there's also a lot of people that have a lot of debt, and there's also with a lot of success with it, with a lot of happiness with it at the same time. So it kind of kicks rocks with Dave Ramsey's plan, but there's other ways to do it, you know. And like
Very
you
true.
said, there's good debt, bad debt.
Oh,
All right.
well, that was.
You guys
that
want to
was
move on?
Yeah, us reacting to another video with AJ, the Wealthy Idiots.
Woo-woo. Thanks, guys.
so
Super appreciate it.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah.
Remember, kids, eat your rice and beans.
Like and subscribe to AJ's channel, Wealthy Idiots.
Yep.
We'll both have it in our link below, and then also
Yeah.
subscribe to ChattRoom. We need subscribers bad. So,
Yeah,
but yeah,
and